Hey,
Hi,
we're live.
everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Tips from the Bar. We're here we're getting motion sickness.
Nope.
We're here at the office at our home bar, and our camera's on the table, and there seems to be a little bit of a wobble. So
That's right. I think if we just don't mess with it,
don't touch it.
Don't shake the table, and there's no earthquakes.
Sometimes we're a little lost without Archie. He's usually the guy who.
Archie is actually our tech savvy guy here at the office.
He's tech here. He sets everything up for us.
He's our CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Mm-hmm.
You won't go by fancy names.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But no, welcome this time. Right tonight, Archie and Kurt are on assignment.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the dynamic duo here. Going to do a quick run through of the tips from the bar, where we each have a fun case. That we want to talk about. Supreme Court cases.
Another famous.
Well, yours a lack of Supreme Court cases.
Right. They both deal with Supreme Court.
They both deal with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of our more interesting mini-sodes.
This will be.
Yeah.
Quick mini-sode. Here we go.
So DACA, have you heard about it?
No. What is this? What is this DACA?
I think everyone kind of knows about DACA.
Everybody's
right now,
kind of at some point you've probably been exposed to it.
If you don't know, you can look in our previous episodes. I've talked about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the big news yesterday was the Supreme Court declined to hear the case about DACA. So what happened was when the Trump administration ended DACA back in September, basically a bunch of states challenged his decision, stating that it is within his authority, right? Because DACA is an executive order.
Right.
However, they ruled that he ended it not really with proper legal authority, and his reasoning to end it was arbitrary and capricious, basically insinuating that there were tones of discrimination, things like that. So a lot of states challenged it in court, in a district court. So first they went to a district court because it's a federal issue. So
that's a
federal court.
You can go either state route or federal route. They went through the federal route. The first court that you stop at is the district court. And
they have to because immigration is a federal issue.
Yep.
So went to the district court in California, and the judge ruled against the Trump administration. So the result of that was that the USCIS, which is the government administrative office that takes the applications and processes them, is up and running. So as of now, if you need to renew DACA, you can. So it basically put an injunction on Trump's ban. Or stop. I'm sorry. On Trump's, there's a lot of there's bans. There's a lot of stuff on his ending the program. So then what happened was normally if you lose at the district level, you appeal to the appellate level. In this instance, the Trump administration, I think, because that March 5th deadline is approaching, where they said DACA would end, the Trump administration appealed to both the Ninth Circuit, which is the California district's appellate court.
District Court, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Within in the California region.
In the whole region there.
And also the Supreme Court, which is the highest court. This is kind of rare. They don't do it often. Usually there has to be a really important reason.
Which
things like
apply.
National security, things kind of that like imminent issues, right? So the Supreme Court, they do not have to take every case that comes before them.
Sure.
So they declined to take the case. They said they wanted it to go through the standard routes, so it'll be heard at the Ninth Circuit.
Well, what happens though if the Supreme Court declines to hear it right now? What happens to the district court ruling then?
Oh, it stays in place. Yeah, it stays in place. So currently, even though Supreme Court declined to take it, the district court's ruling stays in place. So the government is still accepting applications for DACA.
There we go.
So next step, we'll see when the Ninth Circuit takes it and what their ruling is, or if Congress can get themselves together and make a plan. If they pass some type of legislation for Dreamers, some type of pathway, this court case essentially becomes moot. So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of always the case with a lot of things, because you have, if it's could be put into a statute, the job of a court is to interpret the statutes, interpret the law, or interpret the Constitution. If their main point is just to interpret that, well, if it's a statute, or in this case it's in order, Congress can put in a statute that overrules it. It's actually one of the reasons that Trump used to say, I'm withdrawing this executive order, because it should be put into a statute anyway. And so the fact that Congress could step in here and put a statute would, like I said, it would moot the entire issue, because at this point, now Congress has come in, and if someone thought that statute was unconstitutional or that was wrong, then they could take it again back through the federal courts to handle that. But as for right now, Congress hasn't been acting on it, so we have this whole case that's up in the air with DACA.
So I feel like there's weekly updates for DACA. Every week it changes. So we'll see what's going on with. I'll keep you guys updated on Ninth Circuit and Congress.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's mine.
That's yours.
Yeah.
Mine, like I said, also with the Supreme Court, but this is one that the Supreme Court has decided to hear, and it actually will be heard tomorrow. The Supreme Court, they'll hear it tomorrow. You'll hear arguments, and then they'll, because they've actually gone up through the circuit courts, and then now they've reached this point where Supreme Court needs to decide on this issue, because it is something that could have some very significant effects on businesses. This is right now United States versus Microsoft. What had happened is about 5 years ago, United States government, the FBI asked for Microsoft to disclose information about this criminal investigation that they had been pursuing. Well, that investigation had to do with they asked for the emails to be given from this particular person's email account that Microsoft was holding. However, that information is actually stored over in Ireland. So the data itself is stored in Ireland abroad, but it's controlled by a U.S. company. This creates an issue because the Microsoft company doesn't want to disclose that information. They said, look, you have a route, even though the government has a warrant, you have a route to actually get this information if you go through the treaty that's in place, or get a new treaty, or talk with Ireland. Don't circumvent Ireland's laws and their privacy by getting a warrant here in the United States. But the United States government says, look, you have control over this. You can press a button, right? You can send it right back here. That is something that you could just hand over to us without having to actually go over to Ireland. And that's a big argument between this. Can the United States government, through a warrant, get access that is located from information in other places?
And I know a lot of countries, Canada included, have a lot stricter privacy laws than the US. They have very strict privacy rules. So
that's a huge part of this.
The ruling will have a big impact.
Frankly, Microsoft might be subject to a penalty if they actually hand over the information by violating Europeans' Privacy Act, right? So that's probably a big driver for them, is the motivation of that. But the ACLU has definitely written on their part.
So, oh no, sorry, got a client coming in. I think that's the heat clicked on now.
Heat clicked on, yeah. The ACLU has written into this to make their stance clear on it, that you can't just get information like that. It's a violation of privacy, is what they're contending on that.
And this whole, the larger issue, I know this is more refined, but that larger issue is so hot right now with Amazon Echo and all those other devices, Google Play, and even cell phones and all of that. It's a really big issue right now.
And especially, and this is a big thing that the law does, is when the law moves really slowly. So the law that the FBI was relying on was actually written in 1986. Wow. Before the internet was really up and going at all. So it wasn't drafted with the intent of being applied to the internet. And again, that's one of Microsoft's arguments, saying, look, you're using an outdated law to try to, outdated in this instance, right, for the internet data, to try to circumvent, again, Ireland's privacy laws. Yeah. If the feds win on this, well, at that point, then through a warrant, they could get access to a lot of information, even if it's stored abroad, and it might it might have a bad influence on the sovereignty of other nations and their laws, and businesses might be stuck in a hard place and a rock with well, that was backwards. A rock and a hard place. So I was trying to think of the other one. I forgot which one was rock. But
between a rock and a rock.
A rock and a rock, and then they would get, and do they keep the information where they over abroad, and be possibly subject to a penalty if somebody were to get that. Other questions happen to be and this is actually something Microsoft has brought up. Well, what happens if another country decides that they want information that's stored here in the U.S., but this company is located abroad?
Right.
So that means that another company like Russia could just say, hey, we're going to get we got our own style of warrant, and we want to get information that's stored in the United States. So the national security question that brought up by Microsoft, again, I think these are very valid arguments on both sides. I'm curious to see how the United States Supreme Court interprets this. However, once again, it could all become a moot point if Congress passes a law, and there is one that has been proposed by a Republican senator to basically be in favor of the Microsoft company's argument in this case. And if they pass that statute, then the whole thing again becomes moot because it's been passed and that it's a new law on that. There is one point that if something's held unconstitutional, though, you can't just Congress can't just pass a statute. At that point, you have to actually amend the Constitution, because the Supreme Court can interpret the Constitution, but if Congress amends the Constitution, they can interpret that. But this one, again, we're talking about statutes right here rather than the Constitution itself. But there's there was a good walkthrough of kind of procedural of the court process, as well as how legislation can influence that court process.
Yeah, some interesting cases that are hot topics right now.
Right.
So you'll give us an update?
Oh yeah, I'll keep you updated.
Right.
Yeah, after arguments tomorrow. Hearing they probably make a ruling sometime in the summer, like June. Yeah. And so, but if there's any updates from what happens tomorrow, sometimes the justices, them sitting on the Supreme Court are justices, not judges. So them sitting on the Supreme Court, sometimes they ask really interesting questions. So there might be like a very stimulating question that's asked from the bench that is worth talking about, but we'll see what they have to say.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a quick run through for our show today. The mini-sode, to make sure that we actually knocked out the important stuff that we wanted to talk about here. But like I said, we got to get going. Yeah. We got stuff to do.
Got a client meeting.
We got law stuff.
Yeah. Got to practice law.
Got to go do that law thing.
You can find us at ccSKLaw.com. You can send us an email.
You can call us.
You can call us.
That's another thing.
I was going to give my email, but yeah, you can call us, 219. I still use 219-615-0064.
So that leads to office phone here now, but if you want to reach us pretty much at any time, you can go 219-230-3600.
Yes.
You can actually find that on our door as well, now that we got a fancy door sign that has the number on it.
So,
yeah. But she's Jordan at CCSKLaw.com.
You're Isaac.
Isaac at CCSK. We try to keep it simple. Law simplified for you.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Have a good week, you guys. If you have questions, send them via Messenger. We'll be happy to answer them next time.
Yeah.
And have a good week. Bye.